Hi everyone. This video that I'm creating is specifically for middle and high school students in terms of making the destination clear for your students. I created a video that I sent all of you in email, and I used more of an elementary version, so I decided to make another one to upload on my website that is really specific for middle high school people, and using some other more high-tech pieces as well. My original video that I sent was just images on a PowerPoint and sharing my screen, but this time I'm going to use some of my apps with my iPad. So I'm going to share my screen. What I wanted to do in this video is I really wanted to show you as middle high school people who are very content specific. The process is the same, but but your content is more complex and there's more of it. So what does that look like? So I decided to use social studies just because it's a fun subject too, but it was easy and it kind of gave me a chance to introduce some of those national standard documents that I think are really awesome too. But again, the process is the same, and what I'm doing with this more complex content in middle and high school, it's the same piece. So what are we doing here? Making the destination clear. What will my students be learning, and how will they show their learning? So, and I'm using my iPad here that's what you're seeing on the screen. And this particular app is called Bamboo Paper. I really love it because it's in little books and I can do all kinds of ideas just like I would in a journal. But it also gives me the opportunity to upload images into this and highlight and do other kinds of things. And it's super easy. And it's actually more easier than other apps like Evernote or even Notability, because Notability doesn't allow you to bring up images. I use Notability a lot and I like it for different purposes, but this one I like for stuff like this. So what I've done here is I've uploaded one of the standards out of high school in particular. This is under the umbrella of culture. What I love about the National Social Studies standards is they've done so much work. Similarly to Next Generation Science Standards and Common Core, they've really done a nice job of unpacking their standards into knowledge. That's declarative. This is the declarative know and understand column. That knowledge, learners will understand. They put that all in that column. And then learners will be able to the skills they want them to master, and then ideas for assessments, the products. So I love this document. So I use the culture one. And this one would be, could be across high school classes or in a middle school social studies class. Middle school is ultimately all of them, elementary, middle, high school, are designed in the same documents in this way. Super helpful when you're planning. So if I were the teacher, I would be going into these documents if I didn't have learning progression samples. And by the way, the learning progression samples from Jeffrey Ringe in particular are based on these national standards. The main cohorts, I think, combined, and the main state standards use these national standards to write there. So they're fairly similar in how they've unpacked their instructional goals. But this is a great document, so I wanted to highlight this in this video as I'm doing what I would do to make the destination clear for my students. But you're doing this behind the scenes, so I thought in this video I'd kind of make really visible what you're doing as a teacher behind the scenes before you make what the learning and learning experiences are going to be for the students visible. So if I were a social studies teacher, would be going in here if I didn't have learning progressions or samples to look at. But even with the samples that we have, you may want to go into the standards documents too as you're doing some of your planning, because that won't be work for naught in our later curriculum work. But what I want you to notice is that first column is all the knowledge. That's the understandings. Because knowledge comes in two ways, right? There's two types of knowledge, procedural and declarative. So they've got the declarative all in one column for you. Super sweet. Now they've got the processes, the skill sets, the things that are procedures that are requiring students to learn a series of steps in another column. And then how do you put those together into experiences and then ultimately assessments? So this is a really great document that can really help you. So I wanted to point that out. All right, so from there, and just so that you know, okay, so when I said, all right, I'm going to make this visible, I looked this all over, what would I do if I were a teacher right now in planning what I wanted to in digestible chunks in a 4 to 6 week unit topic study want to do. So you'll notice here are my little pink pieces of paper where I sketched that out. Like I said, I've told you in other videos, I use notebooks and little pieces of paper to sketch it out. So now I'm going to kind of make it visible to the students. This is what I would do. So I have my bamboo paper. They're seeing this up on their screen because I'm sharing my screen. So I'm going to just, like I have done before, I'm just going to draw out the boxes and start to, show the kids what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to get my 3 circles on here. It doesn't have to be circled, by the way. It could be columns. It could be whatever you want. It's just, circles are nice because what we can do with this is we can help students to see the connections between ideas. So content, habits of mind, and thinking. What are we going to do with our students to bring those 3 things together? So what's my content going to be? Well, from the standards, I decided that I really wanted to focus in on culture. Culture is really going to be my overarching piece. So in culture, though, what is it that I'm really going to be focused in on within that huge category of culture? So I absolutely, here we go. We are already having technical difficulties in my video. Nice, nice, nice. We love that when that happens. And you'll see this happen to me in every video because, technology is great when it works. And then, when it doesn't, you gotta hunt. That's, that is the life of a teacher. So let me get this back up, hopefully. I'm using QuickTime, by the way, on my MacBook to record and screencast my Apple screen. That's what I'm using, as you see me play around with it in this video. So now what I really want to get into the cultural beliefs and values. I'm going to be asking kids to do explanatory writing and listening and speaking. So I'm going to put writing because I am going to ask them to do analysis writing, and it's really going to be analysis writing, but in through the explanatory vein. I'm going to be asking them to present knowledge and ideas, and I'm going to be asking them to do really historical investigations. So these are the things, but it's under the culture of really looking at beliefs and values, ultimately, along with barriers culture brings, and so forth, and also opportunities. So I might tell the students this, okay, you can't keep writing that right there. All right, so what are the thinking skills that I'm going to ask them to really focus in on in this particular unit? Well, I'm going to be asking them to analyze perspectives. That's a big one for this particular topic study. I'm absolutely going to be asking them to do that. I'm going to be asking them to use investigation reasoning because I'm going to be asking them to do historical investigations. And I'm also going to be asking them to construct support. One other one that I'm going to put outside of this is analyzing errors in reasoning, because I would have taught this to them prior to this topic study, but if I haven't, then I would want to make sure that I actually had that one taught to them as well. Because in this experience that I'm going to put students in, I want them to know that. So in this particular topic study, my students, we're going to be listening with empathy and understanding. That's a big one if we're going to be culturally sensitive. And so that's one I'm going to focus in on with them in this particular topic study. And I'm also going to be doing the one called Think Win-Win. You'll notice that when I model these habits of mind, I'm using actually multiple researchers in habits of mind because I go in and I pick the ones that I think that are most valuable in the terms of the resources to to fit with what I'm doing. So that's okay to do forever. Ultimately, as a district, we're going to come up with our own set that we're going to own as a district systemically, but we can always do more and use different resources even beyond the ones. Okay, so my big theme is going to be worldview. And I'm going to tell my students, you know, we're going to be, our work is going to be around researching cultures and looking at our own personal cultural views and beliefs, and how other cultures' views and beliefs are, and how that can be opportunities and barriers for our ability to work together. So when you kind of think about this, and I just put these up here because a couple of these up here from the taxonomy, there's a nice chart that I have given you access to that has these nice and big. You saw in my last video that I actually had these laminated in with little magnets, and I was using them to just stick them right up on the board. But you can make them digital so you can add them in. But it actually, you know, these are really helpful to teach students these, because then they can understand what they're doing, and when they're using this reasoning processes and connect it to their tasks. So then what did I do? So I did this ahead of time for the sake of the length of this video. But then I would then expand on what that middle box is now for the students. So here, my ideal learning experience is really to unpack and understand worldviews through the lens of culture. And we're going to be analyzing our own worldviews and relationship to other worldviews in different cultures, nationally and internationally. And what are the real concepts that we're going to get out of that? So you notice that I'm making this much clearer in this part of what I'm saying to kids in terms of some more discrete pieces in the content. So we're going to delve into the beliefs, values, morals, institutions, cohesion, diversity, adaptation, assimilation, dissonance within cultures, cultural barriers and challenges, needs and concerns within cultures, and how the cultural pieces, how culture really explains the function and interactions of groups of people. So there's sort of a more discrete way in which we can then say, here's our experiences. So we're going to use these reasoning processes, those three, in because we're going to be doing research, investigations, historical investigations around finding out. And then we're going to really go through the process of analyzing those groups of people's perspectives without judgment, which is really hard, which is why we have to analyze our own beliefs and values so that we can really put them in the parking lot when we go to analyze other people's beliefs and values and their perspectives, and then really dig into historically how cultures impact interactions. And then bringing those habits of mind in, really listening with understanding and empathy. So part of this project, you're going to do some interviews of people that have a different cultural background than you. Those might be online or they might be in person, depending. We're going to be looking at lots of different primary and secondary sources, possibly even reading some novels and texts that tell a story around a particular cultural perspective. So these are the things that you would then really talk about to help the kids connect back to that original set of content, thinking, and habits of mind that are really going to come together so that we can spend time really researching worldviews. And so that is how I would present this to the students. So then they can see, you know, when you will be doing, and come back to this page, you'll be doing vocabulary work around many of these words that you're seeing up here on the screen, all of these words here in different, you'll have mini lessons, and then you'll bounce them back into their particular research. You'll have tasks for them to do that are going to be around analyzing their own views and beliefs and how that might impact their views of others and their decisions in their lives, and then how, and so forth. So then you start to get into the sequence. So from here, this is where you're going to take all of this and then make it come alive in your Google Classroom, right? So here's the beginning, the planning, and then making it visible to your students. So hopefully this was helpful to you, especially those of you middle high school that can kind of see how you can use the technology, how you can videotape it. But ultimately what I did here is are things that I would do live with students. So some things I might have prior prepared like I did in this video, and other things I might do right in front of them so they can see that my thinking. The goal is to also help them to see your thinking in terms of planning, and this is an opportunity for your students to give you ideas, as because nothing is solidified necessarily, and so you can get formative assessment data by doing this in front of kids, and you can get ideas from them on things that are their passions and interests that you could really integrate into your plan here doing this first. So hopefully this was helpful.